The nation's biggest business lobbying group, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is now directly calling on the administration to sit down and negotiate on the debt limit, saying the administration should sit with congressional leaders, not delay to find a path to raise the debt ceiling and address runaway deficits. Will the president sit down with Speaker McCarthy, at least right now, on the budget, as he said he would yesterday?
Okay.
So, been very clear. Been very, very clear on this. Again, not mincing words here. What we have seen, they've put together is an agenda, an extreme MAGA wish list that basically says they're connecting the two, right? They're saying to the Senate, they're saying to the president that we have to go with this agenda in its full form. And the president has said really clearly, when it comes to the debt ceiling, they cannot allow this to happen. This is Republicans in the House. They cannot allow this to happen. It is their constitutional duty to do so. I've gotten this question that you've asked me many different ways. I've answered it the same way. I don't have anything new to say. They should not allow any default, which they should not allow our economy to be held hostage.
Well, Republicans in the House have now passed a bill that would prevent a default. So at what point does it have to? That doesn't mean anything. It has to be a clean bill before the president will sit down at all.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Very clearly, they need to deal with what's at stake here, what's at hand, which is our economy, which is making sure that we do not default. We have never been a deadbeat nation, and this is not the time to do that. And this is their constitutional, this is something that they're supposed to be doing, that they have done. I read through this with Democratic and Republican presidents. This is their basic constitutional duty to do. And so we've been very clear on this.
Really?
Just following up on the economy, First Republic is seemingly in trouble. There's growing concern that the bank isn't going to make it because the cost of their lending is higher than the cost of what they're taking in. Can you give us an update on how the administration is thinking about this situation at this regional bank after bailing out SVB and Signature earlier and guaranteeing those deposits? Is that something that you feel is going to be necessary for First Republic? And what would be the argument against doing that?
Now, answer me.
So we're continuing, Andre, we're continuing to monitor the situation. A couple of things is that the Financial Stability Oversight Council, including Secretary Yellen, Chair Powell, and all the bank regulators recently agreed, and this is a quote, "The U.S. banking system remains sound and resilient." So we've taken, as you know, over the past, in the early 10 days or 2 weeks or so, took decisive and forceful actions to give Americans confidence that their deposits are safe and to give banks access to liquidity. Since our administration took those actions, we have seen deposits stabilize at regional banks. That is something that we've seen in the data. As the President and Secretary Yellen and Chair Powell have said, we have used important tools to quickly stabilize the banking system. We could use those tools again if needed. Certainly we are monitoring the situation. I just don't have anything to preview from here.
Just follow up on that. So you said the deposits have stabilized, but the deposits have not stabilized at First Republic. They've seen a massive outflow of funding. I mean, walk me through your argument or what differentiates SVB from First Republic?
Just living the dream.
Why help one set of depositors but not another?
Yeah, and so more broadly across the regional banks, we have seen a stabilization. So just want to be really clear in the deposits. That is something, again, that came from Secretary Yellen, Chair Powell. Those are statements that they made, the Financial Stability Oversight Council, right? So just want to be very clear more broadly. As it relates to this particular First Republic, we are monitoring the situation. I just laid out the actions that we have taken in the past, especially those really critical first couple of days in the last situation. And so we know what we can do. We know what's in the tool belt, the tools that we have in front of us to use. We're going to monitor the situation, and I will leave it to the experts to decide on when to take action. But again, we have proven how we have moved really quickly in a decisive and taking decisive and forceful actions in the past, and I could assure you that you'll see that again from this administration.
And it scares the living shit out of us.
And just one on Sudan. Do you have any update for us on evacuations and any efforts to extend the ceasefire there? Thank you.
So a couple things that I have on that, so please bear with me, but we wanted to make sure that's out there to all of you. So following intense negotiation, the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, and Rapid Support Forces, RSF, agreed to implement, as you all know, a 72-hour nationwide ceasefire starting at midnight on April 24th, which is about 2 days ago. While there was an initial reduction in reports of violence, we are deeply concerned by the increase in ceasefire violations yesterday. We urge the SAF and the RSF to fully uphold and extend the ceasefire. As you heard from the National Security Advisor on Monday, Jake Sullivan, when he was here at this podium, the President has directed his team to help as many Americans as possible. We are working continuously to create options for American citizens to leave Sudan promptly because the situation could deteriorate at any moment, and we are communicating with citizens who have requested information about those options. And again, as at the President's direction, we are actively facilitating the departure of American citizens who want to leave Sudan by both air and land. This is something that you heard from the National Security Advisor as well. We have deployed U.S. intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to support air and land evacuation routes, which Americans are using. And we are moving naval assets within the region to be pre-positioned to provide any necessary support along the coast. U.S. Africa Command has established a deconfliction cell to facilitate coordination with our allies and partners in this effort. We are also supporting our allies and partners who are including Americans in their evacuation efforts. We are helping facilitate onward travel for American citizens who arrive in Port Sudan, including with our consular teams afloat in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The State Department has deployed additional consular staff to the region to assist with this effort. The State Department has a consular team in direct communication with U.S. citizens in Sudan that is working around the clock to advise them of their options to leave Sudan and provide information on the security environment. One last point to make here is that this is a dynamic environment, and any option entails a degree of risk. But because the situation is unlikely to improve, we encourage Americans who want to leave to take advantage of the options that are available to them in the next 24 to 48 hours.
Given the President's direction and what you're saying right now, a number of other countries have evacuated citizens over the course of the last several days and taken advantage of the ceasefire the U.S. helped put into place. The U.S. still has not. What is different about your risk assessment right now, or security assessment, than what other countries are looking at as they've gone in and gotten their people out?
You sure about that?
I want to be, as you know, when it comes to risk assessments and intelligence, we're very careful to not speak to that. But we've been pretty clear in laying out and communicating with the American people. You've heard us here from the National Security Advisor. You heard it from the State Department, from Secretary Blinken directly. And we have been clear on what the President laying out, which is what I did, laying out what at the President's direction, what we have done, how we've moved forward, how we've worked with allies and partners to get Americans out. And we've been pretty clear about this for the past several months, for the past year, of what the situation in Sudan. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations. As I just mentioned, there are counselor services, a counselor team that's there, that's trying to help Americans who want to leave in any way that we can. And so, again, we're going to continue to have those communication, but I'm certainly not going to get into any intelligence or how that's come about or how we come to certain kind of intelligence, surveillance, or reconnaissance.
I understand on that front. I think my question, one, the security alert from the State Department over the course of the last year never told people to leave. It told people never to travel there. The people that live there that are now trying to get out. What I'm trying to understand is the difference between what the U.S. sees and why they will not send in assets to evacuate versus other countries that have over the course of the last several days. Clearly there's something that's being seen. I'm not asking for intelligence. I'm just saying, can you explain the process here, given the President's directive to help?
No, I understand. And what I was saying is that we've been communicating with the American people for the past year, right? Level 4, that was out there for some time now. Look, we have deployed U.S. intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to support air and land evacuations routes. That is something that we have done, and which Americans are indeed using. And we are moving naval assets. I remember you asked me that just 2 days ago, and I talked about that within the region to be pre-positioned to provide any necessary support along the coast. That is something that we have done. This is something that Jake Sullivan himself spoke to this on Monday. I'm just not going to go beyond what Jake said. But again, we have provided some, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets to support that air and land evacuation routes. But I'm not going to get ahead. Even when Jake was here, he was also very mindful in answering that question.
Whew. Now I feel better.